This is BYU Sports Nation, presented by the BYU Store. Simulcast on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Now from Studio B, your hosts, Tyler Haws and Jarom Jordan.
What's up? BYU Sports Nation is live. Your day-to-day play-by-play in Studio B, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. It is Wednesday, February 23rd. There's nothing cute about today's day like yesterday, a Tuesday. I'm Jarom Jordan, teamed up with a guy who's headed down to football walk-on tryouts right after this, Tyler Haws.
How about that? Walk-on tryouts are today, Jarom. Are you going down there?
I would, but I'm almost 40, so no.
Yeah, I would have loved to try out for football. I love football growing up. Wide receiver, throw me a fade route.
6'5", Tyler Haws.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
played until, what, sophomore, junior year of high school?
My sophomore year was my last year, but...
And then you were like, oh, I'm actually good at basketball. I should probably
stick to that, yeah.
I think it was worth it for you.
Yeah, didn't want to go across the middle and get hit by a linebacker head hunting me, you know. I'm not that I'm afraid of that. I just, you know... The risk reward, you know, with basketball.
You backpedaled like Brian Logan very quickly, right?
Yeah.
No, but seriously, the physical requirements of basketball are different than football.
It's different.
It's a different mentality. It's a different.
Absolutely.
You play inside, which is.
At the same time, I actually went to a junior day. So I played my sophomore year, and I went to the junior day at BYU because I was still undecided. And
as to what sport you were playing?
As to what sport, yep.
How close were you to football?
I was close. I loved football.
Really, Marty would have
up.
been like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, for
this
sure.
This was Talon Shumway's decision. Talon wasn't Tyler Haws, but Talon was a good basketball player. Yeah. And, you know, chose football.
It's true.
Really
there's guys that can do both, no doubt.
It's crazy, yeah. Jimmer was like an all-region receiver, too, and then like, no, I'm going to
You talk to Jimmer about it, and it's like he was all-state 4 years in a row, could have gone to Alabama and played quarterback.
Wait, you wouldn't have gone to Alabama and played quarterback? I love it. Here's the show lineup. Can BYU get back into the bracket? And it may just not be about Vegas. What Mark Pope said after practice last night that makes us wonder if BYU's going to add a game next week. We'll talk about who potentially that could be. Greg Wrubell weighs in on that and much more. Plus, Tegan Graham of Women's Hoops in studio about Saturday's amazing day in the Marriott Center and what ranking and seed she feels this team deserves. Let's hit up some headlines first.
BYU basketball coach Mark Pope said yesterday that they are reaching out to multiple teams to possibly schedule a non-conference game next week. Here is assistant Nick Robinson explaining last night on BYU basketball with Mark Pope.
Yeah, I think at this point, right, we're exploring different opportunities with either Quad 1 or Quad 2 teams. So we've reached out to Bobby Ordusky, coach, myself, we've reached out to probably 20 different teams at this particular stage. And there's a handful that are interested, so we'll see when we get there.
Much more coming up in what's trending on this, Ty. This is interesting.
Very interesting.
We'll break it down. There are certain teams on the bubble that are in a situation where it might be a good fit. We'll talk about what those teams are, who those teams are. Seneca Knight did not practice yesterday due to a thumb injury from Saturday. I don't remember that one. I remember the ankle, but apparently the thumb happened there. And
could have been from practice. We don't know.
Perhaps. Yeah. Well, I guess when? Monday, I guess. Foose did practice. He's still dealing with the groin injury, but good that he is in there.
He's back. Yeah, I think he'll be full force, ready to go. Former BYU defensive lineman Corbin Kafusi, my former teammate, was drafted by Tampa Bay Bandits in the 6th round of the inaugural USFL draft as an offensive tackle. The new USFL season begins on April 16th.
Okay. We wondered if anyone would get drafted from BYU. Corb was. I love it. Shaylee Gonzalez is one of 10 semifinalists for the 2022 Becky Hammond Mid-Major Player of the Year Award. Gonzalez leads the 19th-ranked Cougars with nearly 19 points a game. He's topped 20 points 12 times this year. The winner will be announced during the Final Four.
Sadie Minor Van Tassel is one of 34 athletes nominated for the AAI Gymnast of the Year Award, given to the most outstanding senior female gymnast in the country. And I have to comment on this. My wife was a gymnast. And,
absolutely.
And she said this is the Heisman of the gymnastics world. So
very nice.
Very, very prestigious award. No one's ever won it at BYU, so really big deal.
That's pretty cool. And Sadie's crushing it right now.
Dominating.
Aaron Livingston and Whitney Larinus are trying out for Team USA women's volleyball with a bunch of college players. They could make an elite athlete list or a collegiate national team potentially, so good luck to them.
Ashley Hatch and the U.S. women's national soccer team played Iceland tonight. Hatch had 3 goals in 3 games with the national team. Game kicks off at 9 Eastern on ESPN2.
All she does is score. Like, she gets in the game
Rock
for score.
star. Yeah.
Crazy. Okay, all rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
You're talking about it, and so are we. It's What's Trending on BYU Sports Nation.
All right, 2.5 weeks out from Selection Sunday. Feels like it's closer. It is not. The WCC tournament's like way before, right? Let's update the men's hoops resume to set up our topic today. The net is 53. That's up 2 spots. Ken Pom is the same at 52. These are not great numbers. They need to be higher. Bracketology, still second team out. Waiting for an update on that. Team rankings, 5.4% chance to make the tourney. Not good! Bracket matrix. BYU's just in 43 of the 132 brackets. So, work to do in that regard. But San Diego State last night became a quad 1 game for BYU. BYU has now 4 quad 1 wins. That helps. It's not going to get BYU in the tourney right now, but on Selection Sunday, if that holds, it's better than 3.
No, for sure. I mean, you look at all of the teams that are on the bubble, and BYU has the most quad 1 wins and has a great quad 1, quad 2 record. And so
yes, that are out.
Right,
the
that
teams
are out.
just in, like, Iowa State has like 8.
No, it's true.
Something.
Yeah, that first
1,
8,
2,
8 teams out, right? Yeah. BYU's right there. Their resume is nice, but definitely have some work to do to get in.
Okay, you heard Nick Robinson talk about it, but yesterday on BYU Basketball with Mark Pope, the aforementioned Mark Pope had this to say about perhaps another non-conference game next week pre-WCC tournament.
So, we kind of have this option of a Tuesday or a Wednesday, depending on the team, and none of this is, solid. Everybody's kind of speculating. There's a lot of teams that are kind of with us. They're saying, hey, let's see how the weekend goes and see how we feel it out. But, there's a travel component. If we do one of these games, it'll most likely be on the road, so it can be a quad 1 game for us, which is a needle mover if we could go win it. And Nick is canvassed everybody. He was on the phone with the Utah Jazz today, seeing if they could get us a quad 1 game up at the Vivint Smart Home. So we're
quad 1A, I think would be
We're trying to see, but all of that is, it feels like a little COVID-ish, right? It's going to change every hour.
Okay, so this is interesting. The only reason BYU can do this is because the Portland game didn't happen, by the way. If that had happened, BYU cannot do this.
Right.
But they have this opportunity. So I ask you this. Does BYU need another quad 1 game to get into the NCAA tournament? Feels like it's a dumb question, but we don't know that BYU is going to match up with a San Francisco or St. Mary's.
Right.
A winnable game. Gonzaga doesn't feel that winnable right now, right? In the WCC tournament. But perhaps another non-con, you can fix that.
I think so. I think they definitely need another quad 1. And just because of the way that they've been playing as of late, and they've dropped so far in the net rankings and Ken Pom stuff. And so they need another resume building win to show that, hey, they're playing well right now. And they're just looking for another opportunity. I know Coach Pope and his staff, they're going to give their team every chance possible to get in that tournament.
Grant Flanders, who covers Kansas State, tweeted yesterday, Bruce Weber, Kansas State head coach, said they're working on getting another non-conference game since they had one canceled before league play began. They don't know where it would fit in the schedule, but they are looking into it. Robin McCombs of Vanquish the Foe. Keep an eye on BYU at Kansas State Wednesday, March 2nd. Remember, BYU right now is probably playing on Friday next week. Would be a quad 1 game for BYU against a future Big 12 foe. Hearing a lot of buzz about this game potentially happening. Literally during that soundbite we played from Mark Pope, Robbie tweeted, and I just clicked on it, some more information about this. He talks about Kansas State playing Iowa State on Saturday, Monday at Texas Tech. So then Wednesday it'd be one day of prep to potentially play BYU. It was mentioned, and I'm told in this conversation, that it would likely be neutral or road. But what's interesting is BYU is outside of the top 50 in net right now, so it would be a quad 2 if it's neutral. If it's home, it'd definitely be quad 2 because BYU's not top 30 for that team. So logistically, let's look at a couple of teams that could be in the mix potentially based on who's out and might need a mutually beneficial game. Now, I say mutually beneficial. It's only going to benefit the team that wins. If BYU loses, see ya. You know what I mean? But you're playing for the opportunity, as you mentioned. We put up 4 on this graphic here. Loyola Chicago. Hey, they've played a neutral game with San Francisco. They've already done
Utah.
this.
They've been here.
SMU, Memphis, Kansas State. Kansas State is at 63, plays in the Big 12, which is the best basketball conference. They need a game. But I am told it depends what happens this weekend. Now, let's say that Kansas State splits and they beat Iowa State, who's barely in, by the way. Then maybe Kansas State's feeling like they're better in a better situation. They don't need another game. Let's say they lose both. Texas Tech really good, by the way. Let's say they lose both. Now maybe they need the game. So what you want is perhaps for some of these teams to lose this weekend so that a hunger is created for a game with BYU. Let's talk through some of those teams. Sean Walker of KSL.com putting out a list. Washington State, UAB, TCU, Oklahoma State, Belmont, Notre Dame, St. Louis, Kansas State. BYU's in a desperate spot, but definitely if you get that kind of game next week, gosh, that's exciting. And you still hope you match up with San Francisco, perhaps in a quarterfinal. We're anticipating BYU's going to be probably the 5 in Vegas. Still waiting officially on. Are we using win percentage? Are we using Ken Palm adjusted win? Like, what are we doing going into Vegas? We still don't know on Wednesday before the bracket's released Saturday night or Sunday.
I know.
So
a lot of uncertainty.
Not exactly sure. But you just can't guarantee, Ty, that you're going to get USF or even a St. Mary's in a semi. So go get this game. Sounds like BYU's doing its due diligence. 20 teams reached out to.
Right. So, but you're right. I mean, from the other team's perspective, it has to be a beneficial game for them as well.
Do they want a quad 2 with BYU? That's interesting to me.
I don't know. I think you would take a quad 2 over not playing, right? You're trying to add something to your resume.
Yeah.
And so, if it's a quad 2 and it makes sense and that's the only team available, you're going to play that game just to give yourself another chance to win and another chance to prove you belong in the tourney.
Yes. Let's talk logistics. So it sounds like it'd be Wednesday if it happens.
Right. It would be a crazy week.
You'd get one full day of prep on Monday. Because let's say it is Kansas State. Do they have to play Monday night to know? Like, would they not actually be like, all right, Tuesday, we're good, you can come tomorrow? And then BYU's practicing and traveling Tuesday?
Yeah.
Wait, is this Coastal Carolina part 2?
Yep, maybe.
With basketball?
For sure.
Where you're just trying to wrangle
But it can
something?
happen. It's nice, like, if COVID's taught us anything, is scheduling can happen overnight, and you can be on a plane, going somewhere the next day.
And basketball, a little different than football. There are those
a little more nimble,
right. And there are those who think perhaps BYU shouldn't have scheduled Coastal Carolina in 2020. You would have been undefeated, and you could say that. But I do love that BYU played that game. I thought it showed a lot of people like, yeah, we don't care. And after the rhetoric and the headband and everything with Zach, it's like you have to play that game then if you have a chance.
For sure.
Apparently Washington had some weird terms and the whole deal. It got weird, right?
Yeah, it did.
It got weird. Okay, so. Yeah, hopefully BYU plays this game next week. With who knows who. Kansas State potentially. Who knows? That'd be a little Big 12 preview in the next couple weeks.
I would love to see it. Yeah, the Big 12 preview. I think Pope and his staff, they're not afraid of anyone. I mean, I'm thinking back to his time at UVU. They did the 24 hours of madness, right? They went at Kentucky and then at Duke.
They were in the game at Kentucky, by the way.
Right. Like Zach Wilson, anytime, anywhere. Right, we're not afraid of playing anyone, and
except for Sundays.
And
that's the only day
except for Sundays. Yeah. But let's roll the dice and see what happens. Their only goal right now is to make the tourney. They're
100%.
not thinking about anything else. And so, if adding a game is going to help them, they're going to do it.
What if BYU added a Wednesday game against Kansas State, won it, and then Friday was too gassed against Pacific or something?
Yeah.
There is
you run that risk, right?
There is a risk. But if you won that situation, right? Hey, Kansas State or whoever, Loyola Chicago, the Ramblers, Sister Jean, we're coming for you, whatever, next Wednesday. Then Friday in Vegas, you win that game, and then you match up on Saturday. You still probably have to win that Saturday game. Like, BYU might need to win 3 games in, 5 days? Next week, maybe?
Probably.
To make the tourney? And then you play Monday with no gas against Gonzaga. Doesn't matter. You could lose by whatever, probably, unless it hurts your metrics a ton. Ken Palm just sinks because BYU might be playing 3 games or 4 games in 6 days or something. Who knows?
Come on, these guys. It's back to the AAU days. Let's go play 4 games in a day and roll the dice. Go make the tourney.
Yeah, Foos's groin is excited about that. No.
I know.
Our question of the day: does BYU need another Quad 1 game to get into the NCAA tournament? What's your opinion? Let's get to your thoughts in Voice of the Nation.
This is the Voice of the Nation on BYU Sports Nation.
Taylor Williams on Twitter. Another Quad 1 win won't matter if they don't win both games this week. Yeah. No, I thought we were operating on the assumption that they had to win both this week.
They've got to win.
Well, yeah. What?
Yeah, if you drop one of these.
Then you don't even schedule that game. You're just like,
right.
We're probably done.
Yeah.
You could still try, but I don't know that it would matter. Assuming they take care of business against LMU and Pepperdine, I think they need another Quad 1 win to potentially get into the tourney. Again, we cannot guarantee that BYU is going to line up with USF in the tourney.
No guarantees.
And then St. Mary's, I don't even think BYU is going to be on the same side. San Francisco still might be on the other side of the bracket. That might not even be a game that BYU can get. It depends on how Santa Clara does. Santa Clara has thrown a wrench into all of this.
Yeah,
literally, BYU's season turned on the end of that game when BYU's up 4 with 45 seconds left and loses. That's the moment it turns.
No, it's true.
Santa freaking Clara. Gosh.
Okay, coming up, everyone is pitching in to get BYU off the bubble.
Everyone is. Let's go. And Greg Wrubell on the Cougars' bubble plight. This is BYU Sports Nation.
Introducing the all-new 2021 Nissan Rogue. A fuel-efficient car that's compact enough to park just about anywhere, but has enough cargo space to fit your hobbies, your kids' hobbies, and your dog's hobbies. It's equipped with the latest safety and efficiency technology for a smooth and quiet ride wherever you want to go, whether it's through the neighborhood or across the country. Are you ready to rogue? It's at Tim Daly Nissan Southtown.
My name is Spencer Finnegan. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. During my sophomore year, I got married to my sweetheart, Mary, and there's tons of unexpected expenses when it comes to marriage. We were looking for scholarships. I found the replenishment grant, and my local alumni chapter gave me a grant to help me focus in on school. I'm so excited to, now that I've graduated, give back to those students that are coming to BYU in the future.
Quick crack. Wash all you want. Don't drive dirty.
The race is on.
Go!
4 teams powered by faith and driven to find family, with only their teammate, paper maps, and inspiration to guide them.
Where are you?
The contestants race for the ultimate prize.
I am one step closer to knowing who my father is.
The chance to meet their blood relatives and discover more about who they are. Relative Race, driving families together. Watch Season 9 on BYU TV or on the free app.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
13th ranked men's volleyball hosts number 9 Grand Canyon, the entire structure. And the start of MPSF play coming up Friday and Saturday, 9 Eastern on BYU TV and the app. Conference play, you push the restart button. Let's go. We're in Studio B, your BYU Sports play-by-play. Jarom Jordan alongside Tyler Haws. And we welcome in the military-clad, BYU-clad Greg Wrubell. You've always got the good swag, bro. And this is from, let's see, was it the Idaho State game?
The camo collection?
Oh, it's excellent.
Where can I get that?
You got to be Greg Wrubell. Now, the only thing that you're missing is a little, face black like Tyler Batty, who looked like Rambo during the Idaho State game, I think, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
Wouldn't work quite as well on me, I don't think.
I think it'd be sweet. Just
More space to cover, mind you. But,
true,
yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the news of the day, which is Coastal Carolina basketball edition, question mark. Perhaps BYU looking at, well, they are, at a game next week. Obviously, you've got to win this week, duh. And then next, perhaps Wednesday, maybe at Kansas State or somebody like that. What do you think of this?
It's intriguing. It's kind of exciting. It's kind of Coastal Carolina-esque in terms of let's go do this. But as Coach Pope said, I think last night of the coach, we've got to wait for the weekend to kind of play out. And then does that allow you enough time to get a game together? Does the opponent you're looking at, how does their weekend look and everything else that plays into it? But
if it's Kansas State, they play Saturday, Monday. So I'm wondering, does BYU have to wait until Monday night to know whether Kansas State lost both and feels like they need a game?
Yeah, and I always Kansas State's looking at, I think, 2 Q2s and a Q1 left on their current schedule right now. BYU would be another Q2 for them. A lot to determine. And if it goes to Wednesday, do you play a Wednesday game and then you're going to Vegas Thursday for a game you might play Friday? Do you have enough prep time for that? A lot goes into this thing. So it's intriguing, but, just a possibility at this point.
Crazy, I know.
Yeah.
So looking at ahead to the conference tournament, we were talking about this off air. We won't know until Sunday night really where.
Yeah, we think we got a general idea where things could slot, but we'll have to see if ties have to get broken and how they'll be broken. And right now, all we're being told is just look at the current standings, and that's
is straight up win percentage.
Oh yeah, win-loss record and win percentage. Just look. That's what they're going with right now. Yeah. I think they'll cross that bridge when they come to it. When it comes to, do they have to look to anything else beyond just the standings? If teams have played an unequal number of games and yet they have the same number of wins or losses, let's say, in the win-loss column. So right now,
that's interesting. Greg.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean,
it feels like they should declare before. I would prefer. I don't know how you feel that they say it's this because we've looked at all the scenarios and we think this is the fairest.
And right now we're being told it's this unless it's something else. Yeah,
that feels interesting.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, BYU probably the 5 seed. It feels like sliding in at that spot, but could slide down. Could slide up as high as 4.
Yeah, I mean, there's some room for movement, but if you want to play the percentages, they're kind of slotted to where they might, in that 4 or 5 hole. Yeah. But although there's a difference between 4 and 5.
Yes, there
4
is.
plays Saturday, 5 plays Friday. And that's, a situation BYU's not been in before to have to play the extra game, if you will.
Yep.
In fact,
on BYU TV.
As long as BYU's been in the West Coast Conference, they've never been seeded lower than 2 or 3.
Wild.
Never finished lower than 3rd in the league. Getting to 3 this year would be unlikely by the percentages, right? But just a different way to go about things. And who knows? Maybe a different position, a different mindset, benefits BYU. And that whole notion of having to play, 2 or 3 or 4 games in a shorter span, energizes and motivates and gives them a totally different feel to things. Because they've been in that position where they have to wait for opponents. And those opponents who've played games come out and look pretty good when they play BYU. They're more rested teams. So maybe a change could do some good. Who knows?
Tell us what that's like, because you were the team showing up later, Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would you have liked a game on Friday and not showing up Saturday?
It was always interesting, that dynamic of already playing a game, because you're used to the arena, you're used to the environment and what's going on. And in some ways, you're a little tired from the day before, but you've already played. Like, you're in it and locked in. And so it always takes a couple of minutes, no matter what, to get into the flow of what's going on. And so, we definitely ran into that a couple of times, but took care of business.
Yeah, took care of business, right? BYU is out and probably needs a game to get in. Obviously, Wednesday is the purpose of that. I guess the hope, Greg, is probably that you get a San Francisco in the quarters as another quad 1 opportunity, given their net. That would probably be the most ideal situation, right?
Yeah, and is there a chance to get USF? If USF finishes, 3, for example,
right?
Can you get them?
Now it's Santa Clara.
Right now it's then it's more. If you're to slot it the way it is right now, you're looking at like an LMU or Pacific on Friday, and a Santa Clara on Saturday to get a chance to play Gonzaga on Monday.
So do you think BYU has to have another quad 1 win, or is it just winning out?
It's a hedging of bets, because who's to say that will even be enough?
Right.
And a quad 1 game is one thing. A quad 1 win is another thing.
Yeah.
That's a tough game to go and play and win. That's, of course, the objective is you've got to get the W, or it doesn't really matter. But, it's tough to tell, because conference tournament week, brings so many teams in that were out. and bounces so many teams off the bubble. So it's all a hedging of bets and just hoping for the best and trying to put yourself in the best possible situation. Right now, BYU's net 53. Last year's season-ending net 53 was a 1 seed in the NIT. The year before, the season-ending net 53 was a projected 11 seed in the NCAA tournament. So BYU's in that neighborhood where they could be in and they could be out at a net 53. Of course, I say projected because it was a COVID year, but that's what we're looking at. You're right on the edge if you stay where you are in the net at around 53.
Let's talk about the reality of the situation too. Let's say the BYU does schedule a game next Wednesday and wins Friday and wins Saturday. They would play 6 games in 11 days. Yes. that would be wild, right?
Yeah.
Your play-by-play boards, you'd have many of those.
Yeah, but but by also doing that, you create some attention for your program, and you also, give yourself every, best chance, to put yourself on the right side of the bubble. It's intriguing, it's exciting. I'm not sure how manageable it will be, but we'll find out here in the days to come.
What's interesting too about BYU's metrics. There are certain metrics that scream, yes, this team's an NCAA tournament team. Like the quad 1, quad 2 number is still good for BYU.
Yeah, I mean, I think 34 teams have more quad 1 or quad 1-2 wins, and only 23 teams have more quad 1 wins. So they're in the mix with a really solid part of the resume that way.
Yes, that way. And San Diego State is a quad 1 as of today after yesterday.
Mm-hmm. By losing yesterday.
By losing, yeah. Right? That's the net.
They moved back into BYU's quad 1 by losing to Boise State.
Yes, that helps sometimes, which is funny. Then there's obviously the net being in the 50s is not great, but it's just weird that, the way BYU, Dave mentioned this the other day. If BYU had won 5 of 7, it's a very different story, obviously. The way BYU's playing is different. A couple of injuries, whatnot. They can still somehow salvage this. They just need a chance, like you talked about, Ty. Mm-hmm. And will they get the chance is the question.
Yeah,
Let's hope they do.
BYU, I think, will be a popular, maybe a blind resume team if they're right on the bubble during tournament week, because there will be some things about BYU's resume that say put them in.
And hopefully Oregon makes a run. And hopefully, and can climb into the top 50 somehow in the last couple of weeks where, hey, there's another quad 1. Oh, yeah, remember that win.
Yeah, and it's too early to say, this is a better conversation for after Selection Sunday and maybe even after the season. But we'll be able to ID, the points in the schedule where things, took BYU out when they appeared to be in. We can't say that until we get through Selection Sunday, but we'll be able to ID those spots. They're pretty apparent right now where the Cougars were in a good spot and took themselves off that good spot on just a handful of key little occurrences.
Yep.
And yet, if they get in, we'll be able to ID also, too, the games that did put them in. And clearly St. Mary's, and they were so close to get, St. Mary's was, kind of the one, right? That was felt like a win in your in game on Saturday in Moraga.
Yes.
And so now you have to recover from that. Okay, we know that was kind of a win in your in situation. Didn't get the win. How else can we do it? And that's where you get the whole discussion of, well, can we squeeze another quad 1 game in? Because right now you're looking at Q4, maybe Q2 in your next 4 games if nothing else happens. And so can you find a needle mover somewhere in there? And that's what the objective is right now.
I wanted to ask you this, too, and Ty, we're talking about this a little bit. I feel like BYU, even if BYU gets San Francisco on the Saturday in the quarters, it's 8 days before Selection Sunday. It's just not going to have the oomph that we're hoping for, probably just due to timing. So,
and we've been through this enough to where, when you have an early tournament and you're a bubble team, that conference tournament week is excruciating. It is.
Yes.
It is nothing. It is nothing but scoreboard watching.
Tyler, you were playing this, going, please.
Yes. Come on. In a lot of ways, it's fun. It's part of what sports is all about. In a lot of ways, like, can we just be on the right? You just want to be a couple games on the right side of the bubble, and that's what made years like last year and the year before, COVID notwithstanding, it was great to go into that week knowing the Hays in the barn kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about just the state of this team. This is a team that's been hit with the injury bug multiple times this season, and so Seneca lately, thumb and ankle. What is that impact for this team?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have Seneca on and Thursday, and who knows if they will or not. I mean, he hasn't been, maybe he practiced today and looks fine, but odds are, if he's not practicing early in the week, you may have to prepare to be without him. You're likely looking at again bumping Gideon up a spot from the 4 to the 3. Maybe Caleb goes back to your 4, Foose is your 5, and that's the group you go with. And they've gone with that group. That's a group you can win games with, certainly. You don't like to be down a guy at this time of year, but the vibe I got from Coach Pope last night and his staff on the coaches show was just that when they said they feel like their best is still to come, they believed it. Even with the personnel changes being what they are, they felt that this team can pull together and grind out some wins. And if your rotation does go from 9 to 8, let's say, 8 guys are enough to get a lot of good things done. And if they're, energized, re-energized, reinvigorated, get a couple nice good home wins, things could really, the outlook could really change going into Las Vegas. You take a totally different approach when you get to Vegas now. You're the underdog, you're lower seeded than normal, but you're thinking, hey, let's go, shock the world a bit, put a few wins together, see what happens. It's fun.
Senior night coming up Saturday night. Alex Barcelo is one of the best players in BYU history. Where he fits, I'll have to, research it more, but what's his legacy in your opinion?
He's a 3-year guy that felt more like a 4 or 5-year guy. It's just that's kind of his impact. I felt, and he felt like a BYU guy. For his entire career, he had those 2 years at Arizona, but he felt like a long-time, all-time guy here at BYU, and again embraced in every way, and he embraced his role. His first season, the COVID year, where they didn't get to the tournament, he was a complementary part to other great players, but he was already great in his own right. The numbers he put up on lower volume were really impressive and a sign of things to come for him. And then when those guys left, he kind of assumed the mantle of leadership and has just embraced it and carried it so well. And just the fondest of feelings for AB. And I think he feels the same about BYU and its community too. I think it's a perfect fit. And what a blessing it was for Coach Pope to kind of have that be his anchor guy, if you will. He had other great players, Coach Pope, when he got here, but that was a guy that he brought in, and every game Mark Pope has coached is a game Alex Barcelo has started. And Alex Barcelo,
crazy, right?
Alex is the only guy to have played in every game that Coach Mark Pope has coached here, at BYU, and started every one of them. And so, those two are kind of linked. And it's pretty cool that Alex has already gotten himself into the top 10 in consecutive games started. The Haws family kind of owns that category, by the way. But
it's all three.
but he's put himself in a pretty important top 10 too, by just kind of answering the bell every time.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, we're looking forward to games Thursday and Saturday night. Of course, you can listen to them right here on BYU Radio. Greg, we appreciate the time. Please don't stand by a tree and startle me because I can't see you in this camo gear. Don't do that, please.
By the way, good news, I think, too, that the Marriott Center, they've already dropped the the vax and testing proof, and now the masking has gone optional. So no reason not to have 2 really full houses to honor this team this season. Games Thursday and Saturday here at the Marriott Center.
There was probably a portion of the that we're a little hesitant about coming.
Yeah, I think they're probably a small portion. Again, not a lot.
Yeah.
But now it's just come on out and no reservations whatsoever. Support these guys, fill the building, and have 2 great nights Thursday and Saturday.
Love it.
Yeah,
hey,
great.
Thanks, Greg.
You bet, guys.
Greg, thanks for joining us. Kate, coming up, what is the mentality of the most dominant team on campus right now? We will ask Tegan Graham.
Women's hoops crushing it, man. And do you love football so much that you'd watch the USFL? We'll discuss. This is BYU Sports Nation.
I know what it's like to be overlooked, to be doubted, to fly under the radar. I only had one offer coming out of high school, but I was ready for every moment, every opportunity, and every shot that I got. Now I'm playing professional basketball, aiming to be one of the best shooters on the planet. And I'm just getting started. Be ready for your moment with Rapid Reboot, the future of rapid recovery.
Hi, Spencer Linton here, letting you know when your company joins the BYU team as a corporate partner, your brand can be featured in sports programming on BYU TV and BYU Radio. In addition to all of the great games, you can be part of the BYU coaches shows, place your message in Countdown to Kickoff, basketball pre- and post-game shows, and each weekday on BYU Sports Nation. We invite your team to join ours and become a corporate sponsor of BYU Athletics. For details, email sponsorship@byu.edu today.
I watch BYU TV because it has good programming for all family members, aligns to my values.
BYU TV really does help me with my parenting. It helps me show my kids good examples of the way that we should live. No matter what you watch or listen, you always leave feeling better.
All of us together.
BYU Sports Nation is brought to you by Maersk, enabling global trade for a growing world.
Hey, check out BYU Basketball with Mark Pope on demand, featuring a Deep Blue with Tiki Alia Tiki. And the assistant coach is on set. It's on demand on the BYU TV app. Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation. He is Tyler. I am Jarom. You can follow us on social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. Let's whip it. Cougar Whip Around is presented by Maersk, your integrated container logistics company enabling global trade for a growing world, Tyler.
Okay, Corbin Kaufusi was drafted by the USFL last night with Tampa Bay, the Bandits, I believe.
Can't wait for that.
Will you be watching the USFL?
No, I will not. I don't really watch spring non-NFL college footballs.
Yeah,
No.
maybe I'll give him a follow on Twitter and try and catch a game. If Corb's playing, I want to watch him.
A follow on Twitter different than watching a game. But yes, okay. I feel you. Yeah. And I love Corb, but I'm not watching for the linemen. You know what I'm saying?
It's true.
I need some skill position. I do love Corb, though. Trey Stewart announced last night he has signed Jaron Hall and Alex Barcelo to an NIL deal for his brand Default Happiness. If you were a current student athlete and you could sign fellow athletes to an NIL, who would you sign right now?
Lots of guys. I mean, first it comes to mind Shaylee Gonzalez.
100%.
Right? Maybe a Caleb Lohner. I mean, these guys have a big following off the court. I mean, just from a business perspective, I mean, those guys come to mind.
Absolutely. I'm looking for big personalities who have can represent my brand, whatever that is. So I think there are a million options on campus. Student athletes are amazing.
It's a great time to be an athlete at BYU. Okay, last night.
You wish you were? You made NIL? You would have made some money?
It. Come on.
You would have made some money?
Probably, maybe a little bit. It would have been nice. I spoke at enough engagements.
Yeah,
that,
could have got paid for these.
Yeah. Anyways, that's another topic, Jarom. Last night, ESPN's Joe Lunardi retweeted a story about BYU student making rocket fuel in their dorm with the caption, "There are easier ways to get off the bubble." Here it is right here.
That rocket fuel story is not going to get old, by the way.
Yeah.
Because no one got hurt, we can joke around with it. Okay?
Would a game against Kansas State be as explosive for BYU as rocket fuel?
No, it feels like if you scheduled like Duke, that'd be rocket fuel, right?
Yeah, Duke or Kentucky. Or...
Yes, yeah, like a blue blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so much. Okay, that wraps up the whip.
Oh, man. Okay, coming up, your voice is heard on if BYU needs another Quad 1 game in the Voice of the Nation.
And she defended her master's thesis this morning and passed. Tegan Graham is in studio. She has time for us? What does she think the team should be ranked, and what seed should they be? This is BYU Sports Nation.
BYU Food to Go's convenient location at 2191 North Canyon Road in Provo makes bringing popular BYU foods to your next event easy. Everything's ready when you need it at the drive and load pickup. You drive in and they load no matter the weather. And stop in the on-site creamery for great BYU chocolate milk and ice cream. BYU Food to Go, bringing campus to your table. Call for details, 801-422-5001.
Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork sells Ford vehicles including the F-150, the pickup designed for work and play. Tim Daly Ford maintains a large inventory, providing more choices for selecting an F-150 with the power and engineering to carry and tow heavy loads. The F-150's design offers comfort, safety, and a range of options to choose from. Think Ford, think Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork.
Every day, I help an animal walk again.
I believe that having special needs animals has brought an extra layer of richness to the fabric of our family.
Not many people take in these special needs guys, but in the end, they're the best ones.
It's unbelievable. It's like his disability has disappeared.
Every step just proves to me that these dogs can get through anything.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Get to know the players, coaches, and some compelling fan stories. Search Deep Blue on the BYU TV app today. Last night, Tiki Elliott Tiki's Deep Blue came out. He's from Tanzania. Just an amazing story of him coming to the U.S., but first Canada. And during COVID, his dad passed away at home and how he dealt with that. And now he's at BYU. Just really compelling stuff. Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation live in Studio B. Now, Tyler and I sit here and talk about sports. What we didn't do this morning is defend a master's thesis. Our next guest did. Tegan Graham of the women's basketball team, one of our favorites here on campus. Tegan, congratulations on what you're typically known for as your offense, but this morning, your defense. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was pretty exciting.
What was it like? Were you nervous? And tell us again what your thesis was.
So I'm doing my thesis on the gender inequity in Division I sports, and I did a podcast which comes out March 10th. Which camera to look at?
How can this one right here?
March 10th.
How can people find the pod
on Apple Podcasts and Spotify?
You'll post it on your social, I assume.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah. So basically, I just go in there and I do my little presentation. It's my research, so I kind of have to be the expert in it. And they ask me a couple questions, then I leave the room and they talk, and it's kind of formal. It's kind of funny. And then I come back in, and they're like, "You did it."
What building was this in?
The Brim Hall.
The Brim Hall.
Communications.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you nervous? Did you feel like you crushed it?
Yeah, I was pretty confident.
Yeah.
I just feel I'm very passionate about this topic, and I've put a lot of work into it. So I feel like I am the expert on my research. So I kind of had some confidence going into it.
Where does this passion come from?
I think the idea kind of stemmed from the tournament last year and all the disparities that we saw, with the weight room, the testing, all the different disparities. And then I kind of just going from that, started doing a little bit of research. It's my 6th year as a female student athlete. And I kind of was like, wow, I think I deserve more. And I think, female student athletes deserve more. Let's look at that conversation and let's look at that discussion or that issue.
What did you learn? What do we need to know?
That's a great question. I think there's 3 main sort of tackling points. Promotion, promotion definitely in university areas. Investment. You can't really get something out of something you're not putting anything into. Mm-hmm. And then coverage. There's a huge lack of media coverage of women's sports. In the United States, and especially in regards to college athletics or female college athletics.
How's BYU doing in this space specifically?
BYU is doing a lot better. You talked about deep blues. I feel like there could be a couple more deep blues for female student athletes, especially like Shaylee Gonzalez, Paisley Harding. They've been here 4 or 5 years, and I think people would love to see them. But I think as a whole, especially this year, I think BYU's done a really good job.
Which is a great point, and it's super valid. And we've been super proud over the years of hey, what we do more of than most people? Women's athletics, which is awesome. And when I got to BYU, I hadn't really covered, women's sports that much. Mm-hmm. Little did I know I'd become a huge fan of gymnastics and softball.
Yeah.
And all these sports that the general BYU fan may not cover as much, but hopefully through stuff like BYU TV, we can help in this regard.
Well, it's easy at BYU because women's sports is so dominant. Think about this year alone, how many ranked women's teams were there?
Incredible.
Right?
And
So
still
it's-
are, right?
still
Like
are.
indoor tracks, like, look at us right now.
Yeah,
Right?
we got national champions. You
Yep.
know, we got runners-up, this women's soccer team. So it's kind of easy to be fans of women's sports at BYU, I think.
It's a great point. It really is. There's really no excuse.
There's no excuse.
There's a lot of TV games, and they're good.
And they're good.
The ultimate combo.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't have to be that you're good.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have to be XYZ, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's where all the promotion and the coverage comes into that, right? Whereas when it's consistent, people will, consistently go to games, or, it's all about creating that environment where, you have that fan experience that's like, you go to a women's volleyball game at the Smith Fieldhouse and it's rocking, right? That's the sort of stuff where women's sports is going to continue to grow.
I like that. And then Saturday, you probably felt the power of that, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
With the greatest women's basketball home game ever?
Yeah,
With the crowd and the jerseys and the senior night and the stakes and Gonzaga?
Yeah, I think I was more emotional about the crowd than I was about senior night, because we have more games to play. We have hopefully a long season ahead of us. But I just think the crowd on Saturday was insane. Like, it was just like, I genuinely felt emotional. Like, this is what we should have, been getting all year, I think. That's the kind of level of competition that I think we perform at, and just to have, the Rock there and just a packed crowd was emotional for sure.
When did that hit you?
Senior night for sure. Like, when I actually got emotional was when my twin brother and my mum are here. So when they walked me out, I was kind of like, wow, like, this is my last time here, and I've actually never lost in the Marriott Center, so
pretty awesome. Wow.
Undefeated.
I have a pretty good relationship with that court. So I think that's when the tears kind of were like, okay, now you can cry. Now it's done. You beat Gonzaga by 23. You're allowed a little moment.
You could let out in that
moment.
Yeah, exactly.
So this year, I followed you guys close. I have 2 daughters. I brought my daughters to the game. Aww. They loved it.
Girl dad.
Yep, girl dad. I have so much respect for you guys and what you've done this season. Historic season, maybe the best season ever for women's basketball. Do you guys feel you get enough respect, or is the AP poll a little off?
Yeah, I feel like that's a constant conversation that's been had with our team, especially at the start of the season. I think people were really upset that we weren't ranked. But I think because of that, our team's done a really good job of kind of almost ignoring that. Like, do we think we maybe deserve a bit more respect? Yes. But is that something that we've really focused on? No. We'd rather win games than be ranked or have a higher ranking.
Everyone pulls motivation from different spaces. Like,
Yeah.
you could have used that. It's like,
Yeah.
Sounds like you guys are like, no, we're veteran enough to not need that affirmation, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Is
And our
that
net
accurate?
ranking's super high. So
Right.
I think, and that's really important in terms
Top
of
10.
I think we're 9 right now. Are we 9 right now?
9 as of yesterday. I haven't checked it out.
Yeah. So I think that's something that we're encouraged by.
It felt like a de facto WCC championship game in the regular season Saturday. You still have 2 games to go here.
Yeah.
At Santa Clara, at Pacific. How do you guys avoid, a loss that could damage you in a way this weekend? These are important games too, right?
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like these could be the 2 biggest games of our season in terms of what we want to achieve in the regular season. So I think it's just focus. I think, every single person on this team in our program, knows what we can do and knows the goals that we have. And I think, we're just going to keep pushing for that and stay super, super focused for this week.
So you guys are arguably the favorite for this tournament this year.
Inarguably.
Inarguably.
They blew out Gonzaga twice. You are the heavy favorite.
We came down. We came back.
Out
yeah,
by
we
30.
came back.
You made it interesting.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. What's the team's mindset right now?
Mindset right now is championship. Yeah. I think a lot of people are talking about the NCAA tournament, rankings, all that sort of stuff. But I think in our team, it's let's get this regular season championship, and let's go to the WCC and focus on that. I think, we know big picture, but we're really good at focusing on, game by game, what we need to do to get it done.
It's nice when there's, 5 seniors
Yeah.
sitting there in the
A lot,
conversation.
there's a lot of oldies.
And there's some payback for Vegas.
Oh, big time. Yeah, Vegas is triggering. But
I'm still bitter
triggering
about
is
that.
a good trigger is a good word for that, because the clock operator didn't trigger fast enough.
Unbelievable.
Gonzaga won on the buzzer beater, and it was controversial.
0.6 seconds, catch and shoot. Yeah, I've honestly never ever watched that shot.
You haven't?
No, I've watched it live, and that's the only time I really needed to watch it.
Too painful.
Well, yeah, it's just sad. Like, why would I watch that again and again? I've had enough people tell me that we got robbed, but what can we do? Like, I can't go and talk to anyone and say we got robbed, give me that championship. So we get an opportunity, though, in a week. So
I think all of Cougar Nation was
crying.
crying.
Jill Townsend? Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now that what's your life like now that you've defended the thesis off the court? Like,
off the court.
Are you just chilling now?
Yeah, so I still have another class. I have to kind of stay on top of that, get my schoolwork done. But it's now more just like the promotion aspect of my podcast. I've done it. It's an eight episode podcast. And so
it's a series.
Oh, it's a series.
I like this.
It's a series,
okay.
yeah. So it's looking at different aspects of the problem and ending with kind of a solutions episode. And I want to, it's coming out March 10th because I want to push it right before the NCAA tournament. And try and see if we can get a little bit of buzz around it going forward. Because I think the NCAA tournament for this year, especially the women's side, is going to be a lot of eyes, right? Because there's going to be a lot of pressure.
There's the first four now and the whole
deal. A lot of pressure to...
Selection Sunday.
Exactly, to remedy kind of the disaster that was last year.
Yeah. No, it was bad. For those who don't know, you guys go to San Antonio. You're in a
Listen
bubble.
to my podcast.
Right? And the weight room is just ridiculous. And this is where I love technology, where it's like you can point out errors and then everybody sees it and can go, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Bring
and
awareness,
then change. Yes, awareness, then change happens.
Yeah. I mean, that's the power of social media, right? It gives athletes, especially student athletes, the control of their own narrative, right? I get to decide how my story is said, and this is the story, right? So Sedona Prince plays for Oregon. She put it out on her TikTok. It blew up, right? And that's kind of the beauty of social media. It gives you that your own personal narrative, your own control to say, hey, this is what's going on. And then mainstream media kind of has to pick it up, right?
Yes, it's interesting because we sit in this space where we're like with you, but also outside of you. We're like like a second tier, if you will.
Yeah.
Because you guys are the first tier, and then like the Salt Lake media would be third tier or whatever. But it's like, how do we navigate accompanying you on this journey? And it's like Instagram collabs with you have been a space that, frankly, we've been like, hey, run with women's hoops. They share it. They're super popular. Let's go.
Yeah.
You guys have been great about it.
And people want to see it. That's the point. I think that a lot of people's argument is always like, well, men's sports gets more viewership because people like men's sports better. But it's like, if you look at numbers, which I have, the coverage, when you cover women's sports, people tune in. So
you're saying more coverage equals more views?
100%. I have the numbers. Go listen to my podcast. It's plain and simple. You put women's sports out there, people want to watch it.
That's really informative because you just gave the counter argument to the number one argument of everybody, which is, well, it's not as popular, or not as the interest isn't as high.
Exactly.
More coverage equals more views.
More viewership.
Okay.
Yeah, it's as simple as that.
It's beautiful.
I'm gonna listen to this podcast.
Please
for
do.
Sure. No, seriously. Okay, around March 10th, you said.
March 10th. Yep, it's coming out March 10th.
We'll help you get that out there.
Appreciate you guys.
Tegan, thanks for coming in, and congrats on the Masters thesis.
Thank you so much.
Defense. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tegan. Okay, coming up, the elite voice of the day.
And a rising shout out to Made Buckets. Who exactly? We'll tell you. This is BYU Sports Nation.
And now, introducing your Mountain America All-Stars. Out of BYU, Alex Barcelo and Shaylee Gonzalez.
Thanks for the warm welcome.
So, is this where we get the BYU card?
But of course. The only place you can.
This is really cool.
Yeah, but mine's better.
No way.
Get your BYU card from Mountain America today. It's perfect for students, alumni, and super fans.
Everyone is different, but that means anyone can fit in.
Joe, you have so many extraordinary gifts. How can you expect to lead an ordinary life?
If you guys need a singer, I'll sing. I write songs, too.
She could do better. You owe it to yourself. There's a whole world out there.
to
want to do something? You want to get somewhere? This is your chance. Don't blow it.
We're in.
I have loved you since the moment I clamped eyes on you.
John, I want some answers, and I want them now.
I wish I didn't know about any of this.
We love Paddington, and that makes him family.
Let that pain become your inspiration. Then you'll have something that people can believe in.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
How good was Tegan Graham? She's fantastic.
Phenomenal.
One of my favorites. Also, listen, I love Kiwis. I love rugby. I love Kiwis. I love the culture. I love animals. BYU Sports Nation, always available on demand via the free BYU TV and BYU radio apps.
Or download the podcast. Just Google BYU Sports Nation podcast, and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show.
Our question of the day: does BYU men's hoops need another quad one game to get into the NCAA tournament? Preston and Kareen Arnold, probably, but if they start beating the lesser opponents remaining on their schedule like attorney teams should, they could start moving that net back up. A few blowouts and a small run in the WCC tourney may be enough to push them back on the right side of the bubble. So they're looking for margin. On the road, 2 weeks ago, BYU won by, small margins.
By 3 points.
LMU is 6 at Pepperdine. Granted, it was 9 then a late 3, but yeah. Does BYU need to blow out LMU and Pepperdine this week?
That would be nice, but you just have to win. I think you got to just win.
I don't know if the net will move up that much if you do.
Right, maybe a few
as of
spots.
2 years ago, I'm trying to remember. I don't know if it actually moves up much. They did like a max 10-point margin in net or something.
Yeah.
Maybe they changed that, which is super weird. I wish they did.
But
20.
he brings up a good point. Maybe BYU right now has to show the committee that they're playing well and that they're back to the way they were playing at the beginning of the year.
BYU's lost 5 of 7. The 2 they've won, they barely won against bad teams. That doesn't look good. You're right.
No.
You're exactly right. Brian Buss. No relation to Jeannie that we know of. Although winning time looks fun. Any additional quad one game, that can only help. Right now they have no more quad one games left, and there's no guarantee that USF will be a matchup that gets BYU in the West Coast Conference tourney. Yeah, I think BYU has to have one next week. I said next week. It's got to be at least one, either Wednesday or Saturday. But you have to have San Francisco. Their net is too good, to not be one right now, which is pretty wild. Like, San Francisco's going to get in, BYU's not. It's the NCAA tournament. That feels weird. It's a
weird.
dynamite year for
happened.
San Francisco. But if San Francisco's top 2 post players got hurt, they would not be a tourney team either.
No, I don't think so.
That's the same. Like, we can't dismiss the Richard Harward, Gavin Baxter injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Because BYU was overachieving, we were like, well, this is who the team is. No. They were overachieving in a great way, to their credit.
They definitely were.
But then eventually you come back down to earth, okay? Our elite voice of the day is presented by Sundance Mountain Resort, where there's a lot of snow right now. Raider Blitz on Twitter. Are we past the trade deadline? We need a big with no real inside threat. BYU have a short postseason. How would that be, like intra-conference trades?
Yeah, that would add another dynamic to everything.
We already do, I guess, with grad transfers, but kind of.
Yeah, the transfer portal is crazy enough. We don't need in-season transfer portal.
Today's Rise and Shoutout is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics. To Smarty Streets and Brian Santiago teamed up at halftime of a recent women's hoops game to raise money for BYU women's sports. Smarty Streets offered $5,000 for every free throw Brian Santiago could hit. He's a good shooter. He made 21 shots, which led to 105 Gs donated to BYU women's sports. That's pretty cool.
Brian believes he's the best shooter in the entire world.
He's pretty good, dude.
He is. He can shoot.
Fresno State Bulldog. Our thanks to today's guests, Greg Wrubell and Tegan Graham.
The conversation continues 24/7 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Use the hashtag BYUSN.
Sorry to Dennis. Ran out of time. For Tyler, I'm Jarom. Shout out to Michael Reed. Go Cougs!